Well, hello everyone. This is the first masterclass about Unit 1 in Elementary Book Life. Remember to turn on your loudspeakers or use headphones because the presentation has explanations. Well, before we start, I wanted you to know that Joe has posted on Facebook a link for you to have access to the listening files, to the audio files for every unit. So you should do that at home alone. Later, we are going to upload a file on Pedco with all the key to the exercises you have been doing in Life Elementary Book and also some exercises we are going to give you later. What we are going to do today is to have a look at the most important parts or topics from Unit 1. These are the verb to be, the forms and uses, personal questions, and possessives like possessive apostrophe s or possessive adjectives. So the first thing we are going to see today or analyze is the verb to be. Well, first we are going to have a look at the different forms of the verb to be in the present tense. We are going to have different forms according to the subject of the sentence. For example, if I use I will use the form am. We can say I am or I'm. You are or your. He, she or it take is. And we can say he is or his. Then when we have we, you or they, we use are and we can say we are. Okay? And then for the negative form, the verb to be has a negative form which may have a full form and a short form. And if we use the verb am, I can say I am not or I'm not. If I use the verb is, I can say he is not, he's not, or he isn't. Is not would be the full form and isn't the short form. And when we use are, I can say we are not, we are not, and we aren't. Notice that in these charts we have 2 times you. That is because the first you refers to only one person. It is the singular form of you. And the second you refers to a group of people. It is the plural form. Later on, we are going to analyze the interrogative form in the next slides. To practice these forms of the verb to be, you will see many exercises on pages 10 and 11 in Life Elementary. And then, if you need more practice, many of you have asked about where to get Essential Grammar in Use by Raymond Murphy, the book. This book has very specific grammar exercises and also the key for them. So you can check all those things that you think are necessary for you to continue practicing, because maybe the book isn't enough for you to practice all the grammatical aspects. So here you will see the link to download the book free. What we saw before of the verb to be was the form. Now we are going to concentrate on the uses. So if you had a look at the book from pages 9 to 11, Let's see what these sections are about. What can we use the verb to be in all its forms for? So now we are going to pause the presentation and analyze these pages to see if you can discover in which situations or with which purposes the verb to be is used. So we can say that to be can be used to talk about identity, nationality or origin, occupation or profession, age, marital status. So pause the video again and check if the examples you have found are about all these things that we have described here. Identify them in your book. So let's have a look at some examples from this section of the unit. For example, identity. Her name is Dinah Halstead. Or you can say my name is, she is, he is, I'm. When we talk about nationality and origin, we can say I'm from the UK, I'm Spanish. Occupation and profession. I'm a student, she's a teacher, they are doctors. When we talk about age, we can say I'm 36 or I'm 36 years old or she's 35. Notice that we can say I'm 36 and nothing else or I'm 36 years old. If I choose to talk about or mention years, I have to say always years old. The marital status, for example, when you say I'm married, I'm single, divorced, etc. The next thing that we are going to analyze are personal questions. Well, let's have a look at some possible questions. For example, we can ask about name, when you ask what's your name, or you can also ask what's your surname, what's your full name, what's your first or middle name. Then we can also ask about age, when you ask how old are you, or how old is your brother, how old is your husband. We can also ask about status, when you ask, for example, are you single, are you married, are you divorced? Or if you don't know, you can ask, what's your marital status? Sometimes we can also use adjectives. For example, when you want to ask about a person's personality or physical characteristics, when you ask, are you tall, are you shy? Then we can also ask about nationality or origin. For example, when you ask, where are you from? You are asking about origin because the answer will be, I am from Argentina. But you can also ask about the nationality when you say, what nationality are you? Or what's your nationality? And the answer will be, I am Argentinian. In both cases, we talk about the same information, but from different perspectives, or in one case we talk about nationality and in the other we talk about the place where you are from. Then we can ask about profession or occupation when you ask questions like, what's your job? What's your occupation? Or when you ask, what do you do? That is a very specific question about profession or occupation. And the answer might be, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, I'm a translator, I'm a dentist. So let's pause the video again for you to have a look at pages 9 and 10 because you will see there some questions. What are these questions about? What are they about? Check if they are about the things that we have described on this slide. Something important when we study questions is the word order. The word order in questions is very much regular in English, let's say, and in this case we are going to analyze questions with the verb to be, but later on we are going to see some other types of questions and you will see that there are some similarities with the word order. So in this case, if we have a look at the first column, we may have in a question, not always, a question word. These words are usually called WH words because most of these words start with WH. They are spelled like that. For example, we may have who, what, when, how many, where, and many others. Then, after the question word, if the question word is present, we are going to have an auxiliary verb. For example, in this case, we are analyzing the verb to be. The verb to be has also the possibility of being an auxiliary verb. So we will have am, is, or are depending on the subject that we use in the question. I, he, she, it, or we, you, or they. Here we have an important note that says questions with the verb to be do not need a main verb if they are not in continuous tense. We are going to see later on with the other type of questions that we will see today that it is not necessary to have another verb with the questions that have the verb to be. But we do it, we will need it, if we have a different type of auxiliary. If you go to exercise 10 on page 11, you're going to see some examples of these questions, of questions with the verb to be. Our next topic about Unit 1B is the possessive with apostrophe S, or genitive case. When we use possessives with apostrophe S or the genitive case, it's especially when the first noun is the name of a person, group of people, organization, country, or animal. For example, if we talk about a person, we might say, my father's name. If we talk about an animal, we might say, the horse's tail. When we talk about a country, we can say America's influence, or when we talk about an organization, we can say the firm's structure. But be careful because sometimes we may need a different structure to talk about possession, especially when we refer to objects, parts of objects, or abstract nouns, ideas, for example. When we say the name of the book, the structure of plastic, the influence of alcohol, the leg of a table. So if you want to have a look at exercises 7 and 8 on page 13, you will see how this apostrophe S for possession is used. Well, let's have a look at what happens with names. Proper names ending in S take apostrophe S or just apostrophe. Here we have the name Charles, but the pronunciation in both cases should be audible. In both cases, you should pronounce Charles's house or Charles's house in both cases. The same happens when we talk about famous people, they may not take apostrophe S after the apostrophe. For example, when you say Cervantes' novel. When you have plurals, you may say my parents' car without writing the S after the apostrophe. Irregular plurals take apostrophe S. For example, when you say children's room. In that case, the plural of children doesn't have an S at the end of the word, but all the same it is a plural, so it needs apostrophe S. More than one person, for example, you usually say my mother's car, but when you have Sarah and Henry, you would say Sarah and Henry's car, with the apostrophe S in the last name you mention. We can also say we spent the evening at Anne's, and that has a special meaning. It means en lo de Anne. Or you can say at Anne's house. But we can't say the Sue's car. When we use proper names, we can't use a determiner like the Sue's car. Or we can't say she's hat. We can't use apostrophe S with pronouns. So let's pause the video again and let's have a look at the section in Unit 1 about the Lycius family tree to describe all the relationships among its members. So you might need to use apostrophe S to express possession, and also a list in the vocabulary log for Unit 1 that you will find in PEDCO for all the family relationships. The next topic is possessive adjectives. Possessive adjectives are the words that we use to express possession. They are different for each subject or for each subject pronoun, let's say. On this column, you are going to see the subject pronouns. These are usually the subjects of the sentence. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, or they. And then we might, when we talk about possession, we might use possessive adjectives like my, your, his, her, its, our, your, and their. So we might say, my shirt is green, your book is new, his pillow is soft, her dog is small. You will see that in this case, when we talk about possessive adjectives, we have a possessive adjective plus the noun or the object that belongs to that person. Sometimes it is not an object, but the noun that belongs to that person. In order to practice this, you might have a look at exercises 5, 8, and 10 on page 13. Then we can say that possessive adjectives have the same form before a singular or plural noun. You can say, I've lost my passport or I've lost my keys. So my applies to both types of nouns, plural and singular. We use possessive adjectives plus own. We might say my own, his own, their own. We often use possessive with parts of the body and clothes. You can say he broke his leg and not the leg. And let's analyze the difference between its with apostrophe S and its without the apostrophe. Its with the apostrophe is the contraction of it is or it has sometimes. For example, in the sentence, it's great to see you. That would mean it is great to see you. And it's without the apostrophe is the possessive form of it. For example, when we say the tree dropped its leaves. Well, the next part has to do with a section in Unit 1 that is 1C. This is the section of the book that generally has a text for you to read and understand. Every time we have a look or we work with this section of the unit, we are also going to have a question-making exercise. Before we have a look at the question-making exercise, we're going to have a look at some other types of questions. In this case, they are questions in the present simple because you will see that the auxiliary verb in this case is not the verb to be, which can also be possible in the present, but in this case we are going to have another verb in the question. So again, in the first column we might have a question word that may be present or not. This part will be optional according to what we want to ask. Then we are going to have an auxiliary verb, do or does in this case, and the choice of auxiliary verb will change depending on the subject of the question. For example, if I use the auxiliary verb do, it is because the subject of the question is I, we, you, or they. If I use the auxiliary verb does, it is because the subject of the sentence is he, she, or it. And after the subject, we are going to have a verb, the main verb, in the infinitive form, in the base form. So the word order is similar in a way to when we use only the verb to be up to the subject part. We are going to have question word, auxiliary verb, and subject, but in this case we are going to add another verb. Well, now you're going to pause the video again because you're going to work with the text on page 15 and you're going to write possible questions for these answers you have here. And something you have to take into account is that sometimes more than one question is possible. Not in all the cases, but later on you're going to check in the key we have uploaded on Pedco. So you should check Pedco for the homework to hand in. You will see what it is, and when you have to hand it in, we have divided you into 4 groups, so you have to check the group you are in according to your surname. You will see that 2 teachers per group are in charge of the corrections, so you can contact any of the 2 teachers when you have coaching lessons. We have also uploaded a link to download Essential Grammar in Use by Raymond Murphy and a vocabulary log for Unit 1 with some tips for you on how to study vocabulary, and then participate in a forum about the Video World Party in Unit 1F. Well, that is all for today, so I hope to see you next week.